It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of quiet Tuesday that doesn't warn you. The sun was just going down, painting the sky in orange and pink, and I was sitting in my old wooden chair on the back porch, drinking tea. The same chair I've sat in for 32 years, the same chair where I held my sons when they were babies, the same chair where my wife used to sit beside me every evening, holding my hand without saying a word. I was 64 years old, retired, tired in the way that only old men understand, not tired from working, but tired from living, tired from watching the world move fast while you stay still. My name is Harold Bennett, and I am going to tell you the most painful story of my life. My phone rang. I looked down. It was my younger brother, Eugene. Eugene and I were not as close as we used to be. Life had pulled us in different directions. He became a pilot. I became a school teacher, then a principal, then a retired old man with a quiet house and too many memories. But we still talked, maybe once a month, sometimes less. I answered. Eugene, I said. There was a pause. A strange pause. The kind of pause that tells you something is wrong before a single word is spoken. Harold, he said slowly, his voice was low, almost a whisper, is your wife home right now? I looked toward the kitchen window. I could see the warm yellow light inside. I could hear the faint sound of dishes clinking. Margaret, my wife of 38 years, was in there, doing what she always did after dinner, washing the dishes, humming to herself. Yes, I said, she's in the kitchen. Why? Another pause. Then my brother whispered something that made the tea go cold in my hand. Harold, that's impossible, because she just boarded my flight. She's sitting in seat 14C, and she's not alone. I did not speak. I could not speak. The evening birds were still singing. The orange sky was still beautiful. The dishes were still clinking in the kitchen. But something inside me, something deep and old and quiet, cracked open like dry earth in a drought. What did you say? I finally asked. Harold, I'm a pilot. I know what I saw. There is a woman on my plane right now who looks exactly like Margaret. Same face, same hair, same red coat she always wears. And she boarded with a man. They were holding hands, Harold. I stood up slowly from my old wooden chair. Eugene, I said quietly, I'm going to call you back. I walked into the house. The kitchen smelled like dish soap and the leftover pasta from dinner. Margaret was standing at the sink, her back to me, her gray, streaked hair pulled up the way she always wore it at home. She was humming an old hymn, something from church, something peaceful. I stood in the doorway for a long moment just watching her. 38 years, 38 years of mornings and evenings, 38 years of arguments and making up, 38 years of raising our two sons together, Daniel and Marcus, 38 years of hospital visits, birthday cakes, Christmas mornings, and sitting in that wooden chair, her hand in mine, watching the sun go down. Harold, she turned around, drying her hands on a dish towel. She looked at me with soft eyes, gentle eyes. The eyes I had looked into on our wedding day when I was 26 years old, and I thought I was the luckiest man alive. You okay? You look pale. I'm fine, I said. My voice was steady, calm. I have always been a calm man. Even in the worst moments of my life, I have been calm. My father used to say that quiet men carry the heaviest loads. I think he was right. Are you sure? She asked, stepping toward me. Did you go anywhere today? I asked. She tilted her head slightly. Just to the grocery store this morning. You know that. I was home by noon. And this afternoon, I was here. She said, Harold, what's going on? I looked at her for a long, long moment. Nothing. I said, never mind. I went back to the porch. I called Eugene back. Tell me exactly what you see. I said, Harold, I'm telling you, this woman, she has a birthmark on her left jaw just like Margaret. She's wearing a red coat, the long one with the black buttons, She has the same laugh. I heard her laugh when she sat down. My heart nearly stopped. I closed my eyes. Margaret has a birthmark on her left jaw. She has a red coat with black buttons. She has a laugh that you can recognize from across a room. Where is the flight going? I asked. San Diego, Eugene said quietly. Harold, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to. Thank you, Eugene, I said. Do not say anything to her. Do not approach her. Just to let me think. I hung up the phone. I sat in my old chair and I thought. And here is where I need to stop and tell you something important. Something that changes everything. Because the story you think you're hearing right now, it is not the story you are actually hearing. And the truth, when it finally came out, destroyed the entire family, not me, them. Before I go further, you need to understand the kind of man I was, and the kind of family I had raised. I grew up poor, genuinely poor. My father worked at a textile factory for 40 years and died with nothing but his dignity. My mother cleaned houses. Eugene and I wore second-hand clothes to school and pretended we didn't mind. I learned early that the only thing a poor man truly owns is his character, so I built mine carefully. I became a teacher because I believed in education. I married Margaret because she was the kindest woman I had ever met, not the most beautiful, not the most exciting, but kind. Deeply, quietly kind, the kind that doesn't shout about itself. We had 2 sons. Daniel, our oldest, was 35. He was a banker, successful, proud. He had married a woman named Vivienne 3 years ago, and from the very first day, something about Vivienne made me uncomfortable. She was not cruel. She was not mean. She was just cold, the way marble floors are cold, beautiful to look at, but you don't want to sit on them too long. Vivienne had a way of talking to Margaret that bothered me. Always polite, but there was something underneath the politeness, a sharpness, like a knife wrapped in silk. Marcus, our younger son, was 32. He was a good man, softer than Daniel, more thoughtful. He had not yet married, though he was dating a young woman named Claire, who seemed to adore him. Marcus still called me every Sunday morning. He still said, "I love you, Dad," at the end of every phone call. He was the kind of son that makes a father feel like he did something right. But here is the part that hurt. Daniel had stopped respecting me. I'm not sure exactly when it happened. Maybe when I retired. Maybe when he made his first $1 million and realized his old father was worth very little by the world's standards. Maybe it was Vivienne's influence. I don't know. What I know is that sometime in the last 5 years, the way Daniel looked at me changed. He stopped asking my opinion. He started speaking to me in the tone adults use with confused elderly people, patient, slow, a little condescending. He started treating the house I had built and paid for over 40 years like it was an embarrassing old shack. He started visiting less and calling even less. And when he did visit, he would often say things, small things, the kind of things that don't sound terrible when you repeat them out loud, but that land on an old man's heart like stones. Dad, you really should let someone else handle the finances. You're not up to date on these things anymore. Dad, this neighborhood has really gone down. You and Mom should think about moving. It's not safe for people your age. Dad, you don't need to come to the dinner. It's mostly work colleagues. You wouldn't really fit in. I never argued. I never raised my voice. I just nodded and went back to my wooden chair. My father told me, "Harold, silence is not weakness. Silence is what a man does when he knows that the right moment hasn't come yet." I was waiting for the right moment. I did not know it was coming so soon. 2 days after Eugene's phone call, Daniel called to say he was bringing Vivienne for Sunday dinner. This was unusual. He had been canceling Sunday dinners for months. I told Margaret, and her face lit up immediately. She spent 2 days cooking. She made Daniel's favorite, slow, roasted lamb with rosemary potatoes. she baked a pie. She set the good tablecloth. That was Margaret. That was who she was. Even when her son had been distant and cold for months, when he finally came back, she cooked like it was a celebration. I watched her that Saturday evening, ironing the tablecloth, and I felt something heavy in my chest. Something I could not name. Marcus came too, and Claire, and so we were 6 at the table on Sunday afternoon, and for a little while it felt like something close to normal. But then Vivienne started talking. We actually have some news, Vivienne said, setting down her wine glass. She looked at Daniel, and they exchanged one of those private couple smiles. We've put an offer on a house. Oh, that's wonderful, Margaret said, reaching across the table to squeeze Daniel's hand. It's in Maplewood, Daniel said. 5 bedrooms. Vive's been looking for a year. 5 bedrooms. Margaret laughed softly. Are you planning to fill them? Vivienne smiled, that cool marble smile. Actually, one of the reasons we wanted to come today is to talk to you both about something. She paused. The house needs a down payment, a large one. We were wondering if you and Harold might be willing to help. The table went quiet. I set down my fork. Margaret looked at me quickly, and then back at Daniel. How much are you thinking? I asked. 100,000, Daniel said. He said it like it was a simple thing, like it was the kind of number old retired schoolteachers had sitting in a drawer. Daniel, Marcus started. It's an investment, Vivienne said smoothly. The property will appreciate. You'd essentially be investing in our future, in your grandchildren's future. I looked at my son, my successful banker son, my son who earned more in a month than I earned in a year when I was working. And I thought about the savings account I had been building for 30 years. The account that was meant for Margaret's medical bills, her heart medication, her specialist visits, the procedure she needed next spring that our insurance only partially covered. We'll think about it, I said quietly. Vivienne's eyes flickered. Daniel cleared his throat. Dad, I want to be honest with you. We've already sort of moved forward with the assumption that you'd say yes. The offer is in. If you don't come through with this, Daniel, Marcus said sharply. That's enough. No, Marcus, it's not enough. Dad has money just sitting there. What is he saving it for? A funeral. He should be helping his family. I said we'll think about it. I repeated, still quietly. Daniel leaned back in his chair and looked at me with an expression I had seen before, but never quite from him. It was the expression of a man who does not respect the person he is talking to. Fine, he said, think about it. We finished dinner in a strained silence. Margaret kept trying to fill the air with small talk, offering more pie, refilling glasses. That was always her way, smoothing things over, keeping the peace. She had done it her whole marriage. She had done it for 38 years. After they left, I sat in my wooden chair in the dark for a long time. Marcus came and sat beside me before he drove home. Dad, he said, don't give them the money. I know, I said. Are you okay? I thought about Eugene's phone call, about the woman in seat 14C with the red coat and the birthmark, and the man holding her hand. Marcus, I said slowly, if you ever found out something about someone you loved, something that could hurt a lot of people, would you tell? He looked at me carefully. Are you talking about something specific? Just in general, I said. He was quiet for a moment. I think the truth always comes out, Dad, whether you tell it or not. The only question is how much damage is done in the meantime. He said good night. I sat in the dark, and I made a decision. I called Eugene the next morning. Tell me everything, I said. From the beginning, everything you saw. Eugene took a breath. I saw her board with him in Phoenix. They came through the gate together. They were laughing. Close. Harold, the kind of close that you don't misunderstand. He had his hand on her lower back. They walked. She was wearing that red coat. I watched her the entire flight. They talked the whole time. She fell asleep on his shoulder. Did you see his face clearly? I asked. Yes, Eugene said, and then he went quiet. Eugene, Harold, I need to tell you something. I didn't say this before because I wasn't sure how to. Harold, the man she was with. I recognized him. My chest tightened. Who was it? It was Robert Ashwood, Eugene said. The name hit me like cold water. Robert Ashwood. Robert Ashwood was Daniel's business partner, his closest colleague at the bank, the man who had been at our dinner table more than once, the man who had given a toast at Daniel and Vivienne's wedding. But more than that, Robert Ashwood was also Vivienne's ex-boyfriend. Before she met Daniel, they had dated for 3 years. Daniel knew this. He had mentioned it once, casually, years ago. Vive dated Robert before me. Old history. Old history. I sat very still with the phone in my hand. Harold, Eugene said. Are you there? Yes, I said. I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry yet, I said. There is something here that I don't understand, and I am not going to say a single word until I understand it completely, because here is the thing about being a quiet man, a patient man. I had learned in 64 years of living that the worst mistakes are made when people react before they understand. I had seen marriages destroyed by misunderstandings. I had seen families torn apart by half-truths. I had watched, from my wooden chair, as the world moved fast and broke things. I was not going to break anything. Not until I knew exactly what I was holding. Part 6. The investigation of a quiet man. I did not follow Vivienne. I did not hire anyone. I did not go through phones or emails. I simply started paying attention. The way I had once paid attention to 30 students in a classroom, watching not for what they said, but for what they didn't say. Watching for the small things, the nervous habits, the inconsistencies. I noticed that Vivienne began coming to the house more often after the Sunday dinner. Almost every other day, sometimes when Daniel was at work, she would have tea with Margaret. They would sit in the living room and talk. And when I walked in, their voices would drop slightly, not stop, but drop. I noticed that Margaret seemed lighter on those days. She smiled more, she hummed more, she looked somehow younger. I noticed that Margaret had started going out on Tuesday afternoons. She told me it was a book club. She had never mentioned a book club before. I noticed that she bought a new phone case, not a big thing, but she had had the same old blue case for 4 years, and suddenly it was new and rose-colored. I noticed that when I asked her about her day, she answered just a fraction of a second too quickly, the way people do when they've been rehearsing the answer. And I noticed one more thing. The red coat was gone. I checked the closet one afternoon while Margaret was in the garden. The red coat, the long one with the black buttons that she had owned for 6 years, was not there. I went through the whole closet. It was simply gone. I sat on the edge of the bed, and I think I began to understand. It was Marcus who gave me the final piece. He came by on a Wednesday, unexpected. I was in the kitchen when he arrived. He sat at the table with the expression of a man who has been carrying something too long. "Dad," he said, "I have to tell you something, and I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I was trying to protect everyone, and I think I've been making it worse." I sat across from him. "Tell me," I said. He put both hands flat on the table. "Vivienne is having an affair with Robert Ashwood. It's been going on for about 8 months. I found out 3 months ago by accident. I ran into them at a restaurant in the city. They didn't see me." I nodded slowly. "I know," I said. He stared at me. "You know, I've known for a few weeks. Eugene called me. He saw them on a flight." Marcus rubbed his face. "Dad, there's more. The reason Vivienne has been coming here so often. The reason she and Mom have been spending so much time together." He stopped. "Marcus," I said gently, "say it. Mom knows too," he said. "Vivienne told Mom about 2 months ago. She came here and she told Mom about the affair. She's been confiding in Mom. She's been asking Mom for advice about whether to leave Daniel." The kitchen was very quiet. I could hear the clock on the wall. I could hear the birds outside. Your mother, I said slowly, has been keeping this secret from me, and from Daniel. She didn't know what to do, Dad. She was trying to help. She thought maybe she could convince Vivienne to stop, to work on her marriage. She didn't want Daniel to get hurt. Marcus, I said. He stopped. The woman on the plane, I said. It was not your mother. He blinked. What? Think about it. Your mother was in this house that evening. I saw her with my own eyes. Eugene saw a woman on a plane, a woman with a red coat and a birthmark and Margaret's laugh. But who? And then I watched it cross his face, the slow, dawning, terrible understanding. Vivienne, he whispered. Your mother and Vivienne, I said quietly, are almost the same height, same build. Your mother gave Vivienne that red coat, I remember now, last winter. She said it didn't fit her anymore. The same red coat with the black buttons. Marcus put his head in his hands. And the birthmark? He asked, his voice muffled. Vivienne, I said, has a birthmark on her left jaw. I've seen it many times at this table. The silence that followed was the loudest silence I have ever sat in. Because the real story, the actual story, was this. Eugene had not seen Margaret on a plane with another man. He had seen Vivienne, Daniel's wife, flying to San Diego with Robert Ashwood, her lover. And while all of this was happening, while his wife was boarding a plane with another man, Daniel was at home, trying to pressure his retired, quiet, humble father into handing over $100,000 to buy a house for a marriage that was already over, a house his wife was likely planning to leave. I could have said nothing. A part of me, the quiet, patient part, wanted to say nothing, wanted to go back to the wooden chair, pour a cup of tea, and let the truth find its own way out. As it always does, but then I thought about my son, my Daniel, my firstborn, the baby I had held in this house, the boy I had driven to baseball practice and helped with homework and stayed up worrying about when he was sick. He was arrogant now, yes. He was dismissive and cold. He had said things to me in recent years that cut deeper than he knew. But he was my son, and he was being deceived, and he was about to empty his savings, and possibly his parents' savings, on a house with a woman who was already half out the door. I called Daniel on a Thursday morning. I asked him to come to the house, alone, not Vivienne, just Daniel. He came that evening, and I could tell he expected a conversation about the money. He sat down at the kitchen table with the face of a man who expects to win a negotiation. Dad, he said, I know the last Sunday dinner was tense, Daniel. I said, I need to show you something. I had asked Eugene to forward me the flight manifest information, not private details, just the booking name. Eugene, after some hesitation, had done it. I placed a printed piece of paper on the table. Daniel looked down at it. He looked up at me, looked down again. That's Vivienne's name, he said slowly, on a flight to San Diego, last week. Yes, I said. She told me she was visiting her cousin in Phoenix last week. I know, I said. Dad, who is Robert Ashwood listed as? He stopped. His jaw tightened. Robert Ashwood was on this flight. Yes. The silence that followed was different from any silence I had known in that kitchen. It was the silence of something breaking, something that, once broken, would never be quite the same shape again. Daniel stared at the paper for a long time. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. My son, my proud, successful, arrogant son, looked like a boy. How long have you known? He asked. A few weeks, I said. And you said nothing. I was making sure I understood before I spoke. I said. I wanted to be certain. He pushed back his chair and stood up. He walked to the window. He stood there with his back to me, and I watched his shoulders shake once, just once, before he went still again. Dad, he said, without turning around, I've been terrible to you. I didn't say anything. I've been treating you like you were less than, for years. I don't know when I started doing it. I think I was embarrassed sometimes of the house, of how we grew up. I wanted to feel like I had moved past it, and somehow I took that out on you. Still, I said nothing. And you still protected me, he said. You found this out, and the first thing you did was protect me. He finally turned around. His face was wet now, and he didn't bother hiding it. Dad, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I stood up. I walked to my son. I put my arms around him the way I had when he was small, and the world had frightened him. He held on like he was drowning. We stood in the kitchen for a long time. Margaret came home an hour later. She stopped when she saw Daniel's car still in the driveway, and both of us sitting at the kitchen table with the paper between us. She looked at the paper, she looked at me, and she started crying before anyone said a word. Harold, she said, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. She came to me. She was crying. She said she was confused. She said she still loved Daniel, but she didn't know what she was doing. I thought if I talked to her, if I kept the lines open. Mom, Daniel said quietly. How long have you known? 2 months, she whispered. She sat down. She covered her face with her hands. I wanted to protect you. I didn't want you to be hurt by keeping a secret like this. Daniel said, and his voice was tight, controlled the voice of a man trying very hard to be fair. You were letting me walk into $100,000 house purchase with a woman who was. I know, Margaret said. I know I was wrong. I put my hand on the table, just my hand open between the two of them. They both looked at it. What is done is done. I said, what matters now is what we do next. Daniel confronted Vivienne that weekend. I was not there. I did not need to be there. That was their conversation to have, in their space, in their marriage. Whatever it was between them. What I know is what Daniel told me afterward. Vivienne did not deny it. She cried. She apologized. She said she had been unhappy for over a year, that she had felt disconnected from Daniel, that she had fallen back into something old and familiar, and she knew it was wrong, but she hadn't known how to stop. Daniel asked her directly, had she been planning to take the money from his parents and use it to buy a house she was planning to eventually leave. She was quiet for a long time, and then she said yes, not exactly like that. She said she hadn't been sure. She said she was confused. She said maybe she thought having the house might make her want to stay. But the truth underneath the words was yes. The engagement, the marriage, the whole carefully constructed future came apart in one weekend. Daniel did not come to me angry. He did not come to me broken. He came to me 2 weeks later on a Sunday afternoon, and he sat in the old wooden chair beside mine on the back porch. The first time in years he had sat there. We watched the sun go down together without saying much. After a long time he said, I used to think you were simple, Dad. I used to think your quiet life meant you hadn't figured things out. I thought being successful meant being smart, and being smart meant knowing things you didn't. He paused. But you knew, didn't you, all along? You knew things about people, about patience, about when to speak and when to wait, that I still haven't learned. I looked at the orange sky. You'll learn them. I said, you still have time. Marcus came by that same evening, after Daniel left. He sat in the other chair. Is he going to be okay? He asked. Yes, I said. He will be better than okay. Pain has a way of introducing us to ourselves. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Dad, I want to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. When am I ever anything else? He smiled slightly. When Eugene called you that night, when he thought he'd seen Mom, were you scared, really scared, that she was being unfaithful? I thought about that question. I thought about it seriously, the way it deserved, for about 20 minutes. I said honestly, I was terrified. I sat in this chair, and my whole life felt like it was made of paper. What made you calm down? I went inside, I said. I looked at your mother standing at the sink, and I thought about 38 years, about who she is, about every morning and every evening and every hard time and every good time, and I thought, I know this woman. I know her the way I know my own hands, and I was not going to let 20 minutes of fear undo 38 years of knowing. Marcus nodded slowly. That's what real love is, isn't it? He said. It wasn't really a question. That's what patience is, I said. Love is the reason you have patience, but patience is what makes love survive. Part 12. Vivienne's letter. About a month after everything came apart, I received a letter. A handwritten letter, in an envelope addressed simply to Mr. Bennet. It was from Vivienne. I will not read you the whole letter. Some things are private, but I will tell you what she said at the end. She wrote, I want to apologize to you most of all, not because you are the most hurt, Daniel is, but because I came to your home, sat at your table, ate your wife's food, and looked you in the eye. While I was planning to take from you, I looked at you and saw a quiet old man who wouldn't notice. I thought your silence was ignorance. I thought your patience was weakness. I understand now that I had it completely backwards. You noticed everything, you understood everything, and you waited, not because you were weak, but because you were giving all of us, the chance to be better than our worst moments. I wasn't. I'm sorry. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it and put it in the drawer of my bedside table. Margaret asked me what it said. She apologized. I told her. Did it help? I thought about it. It helped her. I said, that's what apologies are really for. They're for the person giving them. Forgiveness is for the person receiving them. And do you forgive her? I looked at my wife. My Margaret, the woman who had kept a painful secret for 2 months because she couldn't bear the thought of her son being hurt. The woman who had made choices I didn't agree with, but made them out of love. I forgive everyone in this story, I said, including you. She took my hand. We sat there in the evening light, the way we had sat for 38 years. Daniel did not buy the house in Maplewood. He and Vivienne separated formally. It was quiet, as these things rarely are, but somehow it was. There were no court battles, no dramatic scenes, just two people who had made promises they couldn't keep, untangling themselves as gently as possible. 6 months later, Daniel started coming to Sunday dinners again. Every Sunday, he sat at the same chair he'd sat in as a boy. He helped his mother with the dishes. He asked my opinion about things, small things at first. What did I think about a used car he was considering? What did I think about a book he'd read? Then bigger things, life things. He never again spoke to me in that slow, condescending tone. He never again made me feel like the least important person in the room. Marcus married Claire the following spring. I walked with him to the altar, and I cried the quiet kind of crying that old fathers do, when they're not sure if they're sad or proud or just overwhelmed by the simple, enormous miracle of being alive and loved. Eugene came to the wedding. We hugged at the reception, and he whispered, I'm glad I made that call. So am I told him. And Margaret, my Margaret, danced at that wedding like a young woman. She danced with Daniel, and she danced with Marcus, and she danced with me slowly, because my knees aren't what they were, and because neither of us needed to move fast anymore. We had time. We had always had time. We had just sometimes forgotten. I am 65 now. I sit in my wooden chair most evenings. The neighborhood is quieter than it used to be, and the evenings are longer, and sometimes I fall asleep in the chair before the sun is all the way down, and Margaret has to wake me and take me. Inside, I have thought a lot about everything that happened, about Eugene's phone call, and the 20 minutes of fear it gave me, about Vivienne, and how she looked at a quiet old man and saw nothing of consequence, about Daniel, and how success can be a kind of blindness if you're not careful. about Margaret, and how even the best people sometimes make wrong choices when they're trying to protect the people they love. And I have come to believe something. The people who underestimate quiet men are making the oldest mistake in the world. They see silence and think emptiness. They see patience and think ignorance. They see an old man in a wooden chair and think the story is over. But here is the truth. The story is never over. Quiet men are not quiet because they have nothing to say. They are quiet because they are listening. They are watching. They are understanding. They are waiting for the right moment, not to attack, not to punish, but to respond with the full weight of everything they have seen and known and carried. And when that moment comes, when a man like me finally speaks, the words carry 30, 8 years of marriage, 60, 4 years of living, a lifetime of choosing patience over pride. That is not weakness. That is the most powerful thing in the world. To the people who have been dismissing someone quiet in your life, a parent, a partner, a friend, I want you to hear this. Pay attention. Pay attention to who is always there, always watching, always understanding more than you think. Pay attention to who forgives you without announcing it. Pay attention to who loves you loudly through action and quietly through silence, because the ones who say the least are often the ones who understand the most. And the ones you overlook are often the ones holding everything together. Respect the quiet ones before you lose them. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone you love or someone you've overlooked or maybe even yourself, then please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, because every week I bring you stories about real life, real love, real mistakes, and real second chances. Hit the subscribe button, leave a comment below telling me what part of this story hit you hardest. I read every single one. Until next time, take care of the quiet people in your life. They are taking care of you.